a cool light. So, but we don't have our own volume controls, right, Dan? So we are, however loud we are. So then if I just want to be ornery, I can whisper and then you, yeah, yeah, that's good.
Or just move your lips.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and call to our meeting to order. This is a special meeting of the Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority, June 25th, 2024. We are going to begin with closed session, but we'll go ahead and have our roll call, and then I'll ask our clerk to make sure to identify when Commissioner Short arrives, please.
Will do. Commissioner Tompkins,
Here.
Commissioner Greeno,
Here.
Commissioner Wilson,
Here.
Chair Short. Chair Inscore.
There we go. The chair doesn't matter too much to me, but I wasn't planning on changing my name today. I am here. Okay, we'll dispense of the Pledge of Allegiance, and we'll do that during open session. We have one closed session item, conference with labor negotiator um, regarding the adjustment of our position control and so forth. Any public comment on our closed session item? All right, we'll close public comment, and we will return for open session at 4:30. Thank you. All right, it is 4:30. We are going to open back up into our open session items. We did not have anything to report out of closed session. And since we are going into our open session, I'd invite you all to please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. And begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For the record, we, all members of the board, are present and accounted for coming out of closed session. We have a general public comment period to begin with our meeting. Any member of the public can address the Solid Waste Management Authority on any matter on or off the agenda and will be allowed 3 minutes. Any general public comment this afternoon? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. We'll move to our consent agenda, the minutes from the 21st of May. Approved claim 9842 in the amount of $17,371.25 to EBA Engineering for invoices 54945 and 55053. And approve the budget transfer for fiscal year 23-24 in the amount of $280,381. Any public comment on consent? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Board?
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Kara, would you please pull the vote?
Commissioner Tompkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Greeno,
Yes.
Commissioner Short,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson,
Yes.
Chair and Square.
Yes. All right, we will move into our director reports. And so Director Ward, we'll turn it to you.
Score. Looking at the director's report, most of the stuff is covered on today's meeting agenda. So, but the big thing that happened was the fire. So on Wednesday, the 19th of June, about 10:15, a fire was started. I'd very much like to thank Kira Seymour, who was there until 3:30 in the morning, giving access to our fire crews, giving them access to our fire hydrants, which help control the fire. And I'd also like to thank all of the fire departments, including Commissioner Short, for your services to help protect us all as the late night fire continued. We did have security issues, though. As the gates were open, there were people wandering about and trying to access the facility even in the middle of the night. Just letting you all know. And then last Thursday, I attended the Rural Counties ESJPA meeting, and on the 21st of June, I attended another of the SB 54 advisory group meetings, and the rest of it is covered in the agenda. I guess I will also mention the Del Norte County Fair letter asking us to be a sponsor for this year is attached, but it is always part of our budget, and so we fully intend to do that as well. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Director Ward?
So what building burned?
It was the big red commercial structure. If you're going down that short piece of State Street before you turn into the transfer station, it's the big commercial structure that's on the right-hand side.
Okay.
Set back from State
Oh,
Street.
I see. Thank you.
Interesting, the piles were still smoldering when I came to the meeting today.
Yeah, we've had a few rekindles. It was full of quite a bit of crab pots, so there's a lot of rubber in there from the wrapped crab pots. Really a disaster for quite a few families. There's hundreds and hundreds of ready-to-go crab pots in that building. So, and yes, thank you for the recognition. I appreciate the water supply officer, Kira Seymour, showing up. We needed your help.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to financials then, please.
Okay, looking at our balance sheet, we've got $2,387,000 in the bank, plus $198,000 for last month's rent. Looking at our accounts receivable aging summary, you can see Kathy Brewer is keeping it on top of those accounts pretty well. Anything that's gone over 60 days has gone to collections, but I can see there's only one of those accounts that's listed. Looking at claims approved by director, once again, you'll see that the largest expense goes to Hambro WSG for the good services they provide at the Del Norte County Transfer Station. And the second largest charge goes to payment to the county for our credit debit machine, because we do have an increasing number of customers who use their charge cards. I do recall the discussion last meeting. We will be revisiting that once I get a chance to investigate a little further. Looking at our monthly totals, and I always kind of summarize with the authority revenue report on item 3.5, but both our fees at the transfer station and our franchise fees are coming in ahead of budget. And at this point in time, with 1 month left to go in the fiscal year, our budget is $116,471 ahead of budget for our revenue projections. So our budget looks fine. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Any questions on the financials? All righty then. We will move on then. We'll receive all those reports. We'll move on into our regular discussion and action items. We've moved our abandoned vehicle abatement authority discussion up to item number 4. And I see that Dominic is here. So welcome. Come give us our report, please.
Excellent, thank you. So we have the third quarter statistics for the quarterly reports for the board or commission here. And so just, as normal, business as normal, a few tows here and there, RV tows, cars and whatnot. As of June 11th, we do have $1,192.52 left in the ABA fund. So that is normal. We're coming into the end of the fiscal year. And so that remaining amount will trickle on over to next year and we'll put it to good use. And then we also have the proposed AVA budget for the fiscal year of 24-25, and it's pretty standard. Year to year, we anticipate $22,500 annually. It ends up being a little bit more, depending on how many people bought cars, sold cars, and do all that. And then that amount that rolls over. So, typical business, and nothing negative to report.
Anybody have any questions for Dominic? All right, very good, sir.
How much more money do you need?
I think about it because I think
We've been talking budget all day.
some of you have offered assistance in the past when needed, and I think moving forward, maybe in the next 6 months, depending on what happens with code enforcement, we may see an opportunity that I may come in and reach out and see if
your wards were on.
Yes, if we can get maybe some projects coming up. I don't know. We'll see. So,
Awesome.
I appreciate it.
Good work. Thank you.
Thank you,
you.
Dominic.
All right, any other questions or comments?
I think you probably want to vote to approve the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got we'll receive and file the report, and then we have, I need a motion to approve the proposed abandoned vehicle abatement budget for fiscal year 24-25.
So moved. Second.
Any public comment? Close public comment then, and Kira, would you please poll the vote? Thanks, Dominic.
Commissioner Short,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson,
Yes.
Commissioner Tompkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Greeno,
Yes.
Chair and Square.
Yes. All right, item number 5, discussion and possible action regarding the documents prepared by EBA Engineering for our 5-year permit at the landfill. Dr. Ward.
Yes, so in your packet under agenda item 5.1, you'll see a series of reports produced by EBA Engineering. Mike Dolmanowski has been working with us. More or less, this is an update of mostly it's an update of the cost projections of the estimates of what it would cost to maintain the landfill or to do a significant corrective action where there would be, say, an earthquake or a major landslide or things like that. So you have to update your cost projections for those scenarios and then assure CalRecycle that we have the finances available to address those potential expenses. And those expenses have been addressed through a pledge of revenue from the transfer station. And really the amounts of those potential expenses don't really change the fact that if we needed the extra money, those funds would be raised through the transfer station operation. So, but it is a requirement that we update this every 5 years. We're a little behind schedule on this, so I really appreciate EBA's accelerated timelines in terms of their work product. Kira and I both reviewed these documents, and we think they're ready for approval. And then there will be subsequent submittals to Cal Recycle and to our local enforcement agent through the Del Norte County Department of Environmental Health. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but in general, it's a receive, file, and forward.
All right, any questions for Director Ward? All right. Seeing no public, we won't have any public comment on this. We'll go ahead and receive and file then. Moving on to item number 8. We don't have anything on transfer or collections. Discussion and possible action regarding approval of proposed authority staff restructuring, including changes to job titles, descriptions, and pay ranges effective July 1st. That's 8.1. Director Ward.
Yes, thank you, Chair and Score. So we have been discussing this for some time, but essentially the process was we looked at what each position was doing inside the authority and updated all of the job descriptions, and then reviewed those job descriptions to try to find the most comparable county position we could to try to find the right pay range for each of those positions. And the results of that analysis is before you now, as well as a letter from SEIU, Patrick Hickey, essentially recognizing that they were engaged in this process and they agree with this result. And so what we're looking for is approval of these updated job descriptions and salary ranges and the updated organizational chart.
Okay, questions for Director Ward? And the job descriptions.
And the
Did you say job descriptions as well?
Job descriptions, pay ranges, and organizational
Thank you.
chart.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Move to approve those items.
Okay, I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. No public comment, so we will close that. And Kara, would you please pull the vote?
Commissioner Tompkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Greeno,
Yes.
Commissioner Short,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson,
Yes.
Chair and Score.
Yes. All right. Item 8.2 is a public hearing for our annual budget for fiscal year 24-25. So we'll open up this public hearing, and I will ask Director Ward to give us some background before we consider action.
Sure. The budget before you has been reviewed by both the City Council and the Board of Supervisors. There will be needing some adjustment on the payroll line as those negotiations were ongoing as this budget was drafted and needed to be put forward. But in general, it's a balanced budget, and there is adequate revenue to make that adjustment. So in general, I believe this budget will serve us well in the coming fiscal year, and staff recommend approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Just from a public standpoint, because of the action that we just took, you identified this as being a balanced budget with the increases associated with the restructuring. Will we still be able to establish a balanced budget for 24-25?
I absolutely believe so, sir.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions. Anybody else?
I
Chair, sure.
just had one, the liability insurance, after going over the county's budget, I see that we've got a blank line there. I was just wondering if that was just because risk management hadn't come up with a figure for us yet, or what? It seemed to be pretty significant increases for the county. I just kind of was curious where we were at.
That's a good, we do have liability insurance, but it's in a separate line. So there's 20151 and 20155. So
I completely missed that. I apologize.
So I actually do not know what 20151 represents. So my apologies for including that blank line, but I believe we've covered our liability insurance.
Okay.
Well, for $2,500, that can't be the liability insurance either. I don't know what $2,500 represents, but that's probably not our liability insurance.
That's really good.
That's a great price for liability insurance. Anyway, just curious. I'm sure we can hash that out before the finalized budget.
Yeah, and there are ongoing issues, as you may recall from last meeting's discussion, but we were challenged to find coverage for the transfer station buildings because there's been a significant increase in fire claims in California. And so essentially the requirement is you have to use a California insurer. And if you can't find a California insurer, then you go to the backstop, which is called the California Fair Plan. And they had such a backlog of requests that it took them several weeks to get back to us with a quote. So even though we were required to follow this procedure for a time, we were without insurance and there was a lapse. And this happened right at the end of the fiscal year, so we just resolved this situation last month.
Gotcha.
So I totally concur and agree that insurance is something to watch and it continues to change.
Well, I think that because our liability insurance and that which is associated with liability is fairly significant. I would ask that you, at our next meeting, you give us an update, because if we are not fully covered from a liability standpoint, then there's some questions that we should be asked of whether or not we should be open if we're not covered from a
I
liability
absolutely will
standpoint.
address that question next meeting.
And if you can give us an update in between, that would be awesome, because I think that's a really important topic.
Okay, so what I hear you saying is you'd like an email update to the board.
And then if we
one-way
need to take any
communication.
action as far as amending the budget or whatever at our next meeting, but I think it would be good to have an email update of what the status is.
Okay,
Bob, you turn your mic on.
There are some self-insurance pools of local governments that do include smaller districts, I know for sure. In fact, I think the city is in one. And I don't know if those include JPAs, but the California Fair Plan is notoriously not favorable to property owners and people in need of liability insurance. So, I mean, it is a insurer of last resort. And so we should make sure that we don't have any prior resorts to reach out to and get some quotes.
Yeah, and I think that if we're still looking, that GSRMA, Gold State Risk Management Authority, would be the majority of their clients are smaller districts, cemetery districts and so forth. They only insure a few cities, but we have been very, very pleased with the work that they have done for the city over the last 12 years, I think, that we've had them. So
It goes back to when I was there, which was as late as probably 2014 as city attorney. So
yeah,
what was the R standing for?
risk management,
Risk.
Golden State Risk Management Authority. Golden G.
It's probably not 2,500 though.
No. Oh, no, we don't pay, yeah, a month. Yeah, probably. Yeah, okay. Well, if you can get us an update on that, and then if we need to make any kind of budgetary adjustments, obviously these are important items. Any other questions? Any public comment on our proposed 24-25 budget? Okay, we're going to close the public hearing then, and we'll bring it back to the board, understanding that there's going to be some adjustments needed, but that we need to put into effect our budget for 24-25. Yeah.
So I'm going to propose a motion that we accept the proposed budget for 24-25 with the caveat that both the liability fire insurance that need to be determined as to cost and effective in place into budget, as well as the adjustments to salary and payroll adjustments that need to be made to reflect the adopted positions that have just gone forward and that will affect the upcoming budget.
All right, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Kara, would you please pull the vote?
Commissioner Tompkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Greeno,
Yes.
Commissioner Short,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson,
Yes.
Chair and Square.
Yes. It's okay. I called him Chair Short a while ago too, so you got me all flustered. Okay, so item number 8.3 is the legislative bills updates.
I'm handing out updated version of AB 2902, which is the bill addressing SB 1383 adjustments for rural communities. This is both the top priority as expressed by the board, and we're very grateful to Assemblymember Wood for introducing this bill. It continues to move along, but rather than having a permanent rural jurisdiction exemption, it essentially extends it through 2037, and then one can apply for renewal. And that's how it's structured. The other current thing that is an active discussion area is essentially the ways that bears are addressed. As you may recall, SB 1383 generally requires jurisdictions to start separated food collections, which is something that as a rural jurisdiction we are not required to do immediately. However, the way they address concerns about bears that might be attracted to food setouts is they set a 4,000 foot elevation limit, and above that you didn't need to do residential collections of food waste, and that seemed to appease folks who are living in, say, Tuolumne County, but in those of you who live here may be familiar that bears come down to sea level, and so in discussions with our legislative representative at the ESJPA, he asked me, so what elevation can we say that bears will stay above? And it's like, well,
Ask the bears.
yeah, I have yet to meet a bear with an altimeter, so they don't seem to be paying attention to their elevations. But I'll just say that it is an ongoing discussion, and their best resolution that they have at this point would be essentially allowing for separate bin lid covers for those areas, because one of the things that's required is they're trying to get uniformity in terms of these different bins. And bear-proof bins don't come in those lid colors. So, for instance, Nevada County is very happy about this sort of level of engagement. They say, all right, at least we can have bear bins that don't have a separate color of a lid. So that's where we're at in terms of those accommodations, though we can all acknowledge bears continue to come down to sea level here in Del Norte County, and I won't back off from that standpoint. But this bill is continuing to move along, and it is a dance between what can be lobbied and what will actually get across the finish line. But in general, I very much support this bill. I think it's moving in a good direction. There's lots of good things in it. It may not get everything that we want, but it gets so many things that we want that we absolutely should stay in support and as a top priority. I'd be happy to answer any questions on this bill, or I can continue to move on to the other bills that we're supporting.
Just observationally, it's because of the fact that Assembly Member Wood is not seeking reelection. It is good to know that there is this co-sponsor. It's also good to know that you have a co-sponsor, that this is a bipartisan bill, that you have a Democratic Assembly member who has authored the bill, and Assemblymember Daley is a Republican, and I think that's important for just to note that the likelihood of this continuing and getting enacted is good, and I think that's important. It's important because that doesn't always happen in the state of California. So,
Well, I think as a Republican in the state of California, underneath the dome, they're an endangered species. Right? So I think they're a protected class.
So do they come down to sea level?
They do.
Okay.
thought I'd ask.
All right, since obviously we've moved off of topic, Director Ward, let's go ahead and talk about other bills that we
So
maybe.
the two other bills that the board has already voted to support continue to move through. SB 1066 addresses marine flares, and of course, we're very interested in trying to deal with those. And this supports boaters in coastal communities who lack disposal options for flares. Stockpiling or illegal disposal of those creates their own problems, and the flares contain chemicals like perchlorate, which are particularly problematic in the water. So this bill continues to move forward, and I continue to communicate the board's support as it does so. The other bill is SB 1280, and that is dealing with single-use propane cylinders. And there was an earlier bill that tried to establish a producer responsibility program that was vetoed by Governor Newsom. The hope is that while this isn't an EPR program, there are many locations where one can get refillable 1 pound propane containers, and that is where we would like folks to move. And so supporting this bill is banning the sale of the single-use containers to try to move people to using those refillables.
All right, any questions? All right, then
Okay, so I'll hopefully at the end of the legislative session, I'll be able to come back with even more good news.
Has there ever been, as far as the movement of flares, I know we've done this with various items from pills to needles to firearms or whatever, but that having or posting a drop box or container for disposal, whether it's at the harbor or someplace like that, that is secure and that is, safe for those items to be dropped into or placed into as a collection point or as a collections process, someplace that's relatively convenient, because I know we do those types of various drop programs, for all sorts of hazardous materials, but that, something like that down at the harbor, I think would be
Unfortunately, at this point,
Convenient.
While I acknowledge that it would be convenient, unfortunately, I don't think it's legal. Because those are all hazardous materials and they really can't go in the mixed waste disposal. And we don't,
No, I'm talking about specific containers built for that.
and I really like the idea. I do. And we've talked and explored the possibility of specified containers that where you might be able to set them off safely. But the bottom line is that our investigations have not found any positive result of pursuing those angles. I don't believe that we can legally set up a drop-off where people can put them. We don't have a legal way to manage them once they're put there, and we don't have a way to neutralize the hazards that they represent. And so if we were to set aside a container, I'm not sure the container would be legal, and I don't know what we would do with the materials once they were placed in there. So those are two big issues.
Like I said, I know that we do these things with various hazardous materials already. So I whether it's firearms, whether it's ammunition, whether it's drugs, whether it's flares and those type of things, we do this. They have mechanisms for that. So
I would love to talk to you about how munitions are dealt with, because that seems to be the closest analog to these kinds of things. But we currently do not have any collection program for those kinds of materials. And in fact, for instance, when people bring in outdated munitions to the Household Hazardous Waste Day, we can't take control of those, just like controlled substances. So we have to call the sheriff and basically say, because there isn't a legal mechanism by which we can deal with them. But the sheriff's department does occasionally deal with them. So, but it seems to be a situation we need to investigate each year because the laws keep updating.
yeah, the unfortunate thing is with this specific material, probably the lesser of two evils process that we're left with is use them up and quit selling them, because they're actually, the impact that they make actually used for real purposes out in the ocean is probably the smaller impact than trying to dispose of them on land. They're not good, but in the grand scheme of things, the impact that they would have, and I'm not saying go out and shoot off all your flares. I'm just saying from the standpoint, if they were used appropriately in the ocean, that impact into the ocean is probably less than the problem that we would have of collecting all those items on land and trying to dispose of them because there's no means to do so right now.
And Kira has worked with the California Product Stewardship Council on this issue far more than I have. So do you have anything to add to this discussion, Kira?
It's a really big issue, problem. It's been going on for a very long time. The problem with setting them off, I don't know if anyone knows, but if anyone's listening, if you set them off, it's a felony if you don't have an emergency. And I agree, emergencies or training is one of the best ways to use them up. But we have a very beleaguered Coast Guard. I don't think we even have one right now. And we don't have any disposal option whatsoever. When I'm looking into the prices to bring a collection event here, and a collection event will be coming here again this year, and that should be in November. The problem with this material is that it's bad any way you do it. Any way you do it, you can't rely on them. They expire, and you have to be responsible. You have to continue to carry them even when they're expired. You can't test them. It's not good for the water, the fish, the marine life at all. And if you do happen to, in case anyone's listening, 4th of July is coming. If you set them off and it does spark an investigation or an emergency routing to your location, you will not only be charged for the felony, but you'll be charged for everything that it costs to send the people out there to rescue you. So, just to let you guys know. And I will keep you guys informed for the collection event that will be happening this year.
Good. All righty. We have one last item. It was something we have to add, Workplace Violence Prevention Program, Director Ward.
Yes, so this was developed off of a template that was provided by Human Resources, which I appreciate. But essentially, it is a requirement that we've all got to comply by, and hopefully we get this adopted by the 1st of July, which is the deadline. It essentially deals with the potential for workplace violence issues, whether that's directed between a person who has no legitimate business with the workplace, or someone who does have an association with an employee, or who is just being aggressive. But essentially it goes through all of the different steps that we try to follow to try to keep each other safe and to communicate about potential threats as they arise. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but we have reviewed this with staff, and it is intended to be a living document. So if you have any suggestions about how it can be improved, I welcome.
Okay. You think?
Will this have to be approved by the board for every year with every update? Kind of like the IIPP, does that?
Yeah,
that doesn't have to come to-
it's kind of part of the IIPP, and I wanted you all to be aware of it in case you had any additional updates. But yes, I think it does need to be regularly updated.
Okay. I'll move to approve the version that we have in the agenda.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any public comment? All right, close public comment. Carrie, would you please pull the vote?
Commissioner Tompkins?
Yes.
Commissioner Greeno?
Yes.
Commissioner Short?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson?
Yes.
Chair Inscore?
Yes. All right, we have come to the end of our agenda. Anybody have anything for the good of the order? Director Ward, anything? Kira? Mr. Taylor? All right, then we will adjourn to our next regular meeting, which will be on July 16th, 2024, right here. Thank you.
Thank you all.